Today we're joined by Adele Fawcett and Millie Barron from AirNow Cybersecurity. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so my name is Millie Barron. I am team leader of the Cyber Academy here at AirNow. I basically train everyone, get them introduced to vendors, keep vendor relationships alive, things like that.
My name's Adele Fawcett. I'm a cybersecurity consultant at AirNow. AirNow Cybersecurity, a little bit of us. We work around the NIST framework of identify, protect, detect, respond and recover. The subject we're going to be speaking about today is cybersecurity risk ratings. They basically fall under the pillar of identify. So when it comes to identifying risk in your supply chain, by continuously monitoring that. But we'll go into that in a bit more detail, I suppose, in this chat.
Great, awesome. We've obviously talked, Adele, about cyber ratings in the past due to the Gartner article. Do you maybe want to go into that a little bit and maybe talk about how that's kind of progressed?
Yeah, so cybersecurity risk ratings, I suppose the Gartner article said that they would be as popular as credit ratings by 2021. And I suppose they haven't yet reached that level. I personally didn't think they would that quick, but they have become a lot more popular in the use of third-party risk monitoring. And you've noticed that not just by conversations coming up, but by, I suppose, when you are speaking to people, it coming up with competitors that they're using as well. I don't know what perspective you've seen, growth you've seen with that, Millie.
Yeah, I think as well, a lot of insurance companies, like business-to-business insurance companies, are now looking at like cyber insurance for businesses. Cyber risk ratings play a massive part in that, because it's a non-intrusive way to obviously scan. It's very subjective, it's not objective, so it's not like sending out like questionnaires and saying, are you secure in this area? It's very much like scanning your infrastructure, scanning that network, finding out where your issues are, where they're not going to be, and then helping businesses make improvements. So I think, I don't know, like especially with like the vendor that we use is Security Scorecard. So with them, they've currently gone from 5 million users to 100 million users over the space of the last 12 months. So I think, although we're not seeing the, what would you say, like, we're not seeing governments back it, and we're not seeing like, this is now how we are going to rate you. We are seeing a massive influx of businesses starting to take third-party vendor risk a lot more seriously, and understanding that like companies are not lying, like smudging the truth a little bit on how secure their business actually is. So I think that is also really important, but I think that's just what I've seen in the last 12 months.
I think as well, when you see it from the perspective of, because as you know, we work with a partner, they provide sort of, you can get a risk rating completely free of charge. Once you see the information that they're given and you can compare it to questionnaires that you might receive, it really does, I suppose, set in stone how they can revolutionise the due diligence and the steps that you take to onboard suppliers and vendors and things like that. So they have come a long way in being noticed and taken a bit more seriously, I'd say. I do think as well, when I first started in IT security and cybersecurity, and I first started speaking to people about cybersecurity risk ratings, there was a lot of conversations around, or will there be ratings on our own personal IT security? Whereas now that's sort of it's been recognised that we're not at that point. Hopefully, we will never be at that point of having our own cybersecurity risk ratings. It is more just for organisations to monitor and vet their suppliers. So yeah, I suppose it's grown, to put it simply.
think as well, like it's also really, I know that I've spoken to a couple of clients that like to see what their network looks like to other people. So like if their suppliers did have it, what would you look like to them? And then you can then see areas that you need to improve on for either your business or your vendor chain, things like that. I think that's pretty exciting.
It's always good to have a little nosy into. Everyone's always a bit interested. And one thing I always find too is when you start speaking to companies about it, and show them different platforms and how it can be used, everyone's always a bit interested to see where their competitors lie, because it is a non-intrusive view. Anyone can see this information, so why not have a little look at your competitors? And I do think that some organizations do that, but it is a good comparison, because if I was doing these checks and I had the opportunity to look at one organization for, I don't know, supplying staples compared to another organization for supplying staples, if one had better cybersecurity posture, you'd use them simply because you've less chance of getting breached through, a third party attack, island hopping. So yeah, it's a good way of looking at your competitors and a good reason too, I suppose.
I think it's really funny that you said staples there as well, because was it Target in America? They actually got island hopping by their air conditioning unit. And I thought it was really, really funny when I found out about it, because basically they, obviously because they're a big chain, they use the same air conditioning for each and every single shop that they've got. So they got phished basically, and they handed over their personal details, and all they had to do was email Target and say, hi, can you just transfer the money to this account now, because we have actually changed. And Target lost millions for it. So I think like even something as small as like staples, like it does matter. I thought it was really funny when I found out. I was like, no, that's not what happens. Like, no, that's exactly what it is. I thought it was really funny.
It's scary how much trust someone can actually have just because they've used them for a while. Scary how much trust they can actually have in an organisation. But that's where cybersecurity comes into play, I suppose, in itself.
Yeah, I know previously where I've worked, I used to work at a place selling caravan covers, and someone phoned us once and was like, oh yeah, we just need your bank details again because we've lost them and we're just trying to pay this. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And I gave them straight away. I did not think about it at all. And now, like, I could not picture myself doing that now that I've been in the cyber industry. I don't trust anyone. I get an email from my banker, I'm like, ooh, looks suspicious. That's not what you want. No, it's not.
Cool. So that's kind of an overview of risk ratings and how they're kind of impacting businesses at the moment. But how do they actually work in practicality? How would a business go about kind of getting one, looking at one, and what actual details are shown?
Well, I mean, it varies from platform to platform. If an organisation did think, so say, if they did think, right, we need to use this cybersecurity risk rating as a form of due diligence because questionnaires just aren't cutting it anymore, because they're not necessarily cutting it anymore. It can, you can, there's a number of platforms out there which you can reach out to and decide which works for your organisation, because each platform rates and takes different risk factors into account. The platform we are partnered with has 10 different risk factors ranging from application security to DNS health, dark web, but there's 10 different risk factors. There's obviously other platforms out there, ones that might specialize in simply what is seen on the dark web, and that's it. So it depends what works for your organization. I'd always say shop about, but I'd say shop about with everything. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any other routes that anything that you'd want to add to that, Mel?
Yeah, I think with the security ratings, obviously there are some rate them from A to F, some rate them from 1 to 100, 100 being the worst because there's 100 problems. Or I think that it is obviously depending on what kind of industry you're in, depending on what kind of information you're wanting to get. Like I know the one that we use, obviously there's 10 different risk factors, from hacker chatter, like where your details are being passed around the dark web. There's DNS health, there's everything. And they have actually just partnered up with Digital Source that also do like your marketing platform. So like anything that's leaked from Facebook or that gets brought in from Instagram, things like that. But again, it's for your business. Like for me, if I were, I don't know, selling shoes and I'm using Facebook and things like that, I would use them because I'd want to know where that's coming from. But I guess if you work for, like, say, an insurance broker, or they'd want to know more about more in-depth scans of like the dark web, like are we actually being networked? Like I know that my infrastructure is very, very safe. I don't care about the DNS health or anything like that. I need to know what's actually happening from them third parties, like the dark web, like hacker chatter, things like that. So again, I think it is like completely up to what you're wanting to find, especially from your suppliers. But yeah, I think definitely shop around. Obviously me and Adele can send you over a scorecard if that's what you want in. But I'd say definitely have a look at different places and find out what works best for you.
Just back to the sort of practicality, because you did mention that and we grazed over that a bit. I suppose the main use of cybersecurity risk ratings is for third-party risk, conducting that due diligence, but continuously doing it. So instead of just using them while onboarding a supplier one time, comparing it to one staple supplier to another staple supplier, one air conditioning supplier to another air conditioning supplier, you are able to continuously keep on top or continuously monitor these suppliers. So that if their score goes below a certain amount, or if any particular issues creep up, you're able to be notified of these issues and pick up on them, so you can turn around to that supplier. The suppliers don't always have a positive response if you do turn around and say, hey guys, you're messing up a bit on these particular points. As you would expect, no one likes being told what they're doing wrong, but you are able to pick up on that, identify that, and then potentially, if you really want, change suppliers. It just allows you to then say, if your staple supplier did send you a message saying, look, we've changed his bank details, you can always check their security scorecard, their cyber risk rating, and see if their posture's dropped. You're able to say, hang on a second, is that actually you? Because you've potentially been breached here, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think as well, like it's really important to understand where you are as a business on the cybersecurity maturity curve. Mm-hmm. So if you're, say like your local garage at the end of the street, he's not going to be as secure as Ladbrokes at the end of the road. I think understanding where you are on that curve can really understand or help you implement what's best for you and your business. I think the main issue that businesses have got is that they'll put one thing in place and then the standard starts to slip. And I know that especially with like third-party vendor risk, like with your vendors, they will jump through hell and water to get on your supplier list. And then as soon as they're there, the standard tends to drop. So like there are certain things, like I know with the government, you have to be ISO compliant, or you have to be like GDPR compliant and things like that. Setting that standard and being like, okay, I will work with anyone who is 50% or more, or anyone who is an A or a B, depending on how your risk platform rates that. I think setting that standard and staying strict to it allows you to be a lot more secure. I think that when people start to drop that guard, that's when they get hit. That's when the problem is, because people don't keep up to it, and hackers understand that. They know that everyone's busy. And I've just known that, like I've looked on like Indeed.com, and I can see that this place is hiring IT security managers. That means that they've either not got one, or they're looking to expand and they don't have the capacity to do it. That's when you'll get hit, because they know that you're struggling. They can see it. They look at all these different factors and go, right, okay, now's my time to go. And I think I'm not saying that they do use third-party vendor risk managements, but it wouldn't take anyone special to go on, get your URL, have a look at your score, and they say that like if you're like a C or below or like an 80 or below, then you're 5 times more likely to get hacked. So it wouldn't take a hacker much to be able to scan your infrastructure and go, right, okay, their DNS health's really bad. I'm going to go in through that port. And that's how it tends to happen. I think that people don't look at cyber as a whole. Everything links together.
Just to sort of back your point as well around organisations going through, jumping through hell and water, whatever the saying is, to become, part of your supply chain, reaching accreditations like ISO to become part of your supply chain. There's nothing wrong with being ISO compliant, and it is a high standard. However, there have been times, and it has been, known cases that once organisations reach that standard and are on your PSL, they don't keep up to that standard until their next audit. Whereas cybersecurity risk ratings allow you to ensure that they are actually keeping to that standard. And say if you randomly sent them a questionnaire relating to the ISO framework, what, again, depending from platform to platform, the platform we're partnered with will actually verify the results it can do related to this questionnaire. So it shows whether they are actually keeping to that standard, and their word is worth it, if that makes sense.
Great. So we have a question here from JJ, and he asks, does the legitimacy or age of data on the dark web impact the rating? He's saying, if it's old data from a few years ago, it might have been addressed. And he's wondering if that would kind of taint the validity of the rating.
So, hi JJ. Basically, when it doesn't, what the platform we're partnered with does is it continuously monitors the cybersecurity posture, and once an issue has been addressed, it does reflect that on their score. You can either wait until it refreshes, or you can go into the platform if you have access to the platform and simply give evidence of how you've addressed that issue. So if that information on the dark web's been removed, or you've implemented procedures, you put things in place to ensure that they can't be breached through that particular manner, it does reflect that in the score once it's being refreshed or updated, because it does continuously monitor the posture. So yeah, that answers that.
Yeah, I think as well, like it does refresh every 30 days. You'll get a new score on that business, and it'll tell you if it's dropped in certain areas or like if it's gone up in certain areas. And you will receive I can only speak on the platform that we obviously are partnered with, but I know with our partners, if you can edit your score online, and you can fill out a form and go, right, okay, these have been remediated and I've done it by this, and this. So if it's something like hacker chatter or on the dark web, obviously we can't scan that to say, right, okay, has it actually been remediated? So you'd have to put forward the data that you've got to prove that that's been done. Whereas if it was something like an application security issue, once we scan it again, that issue will no longer be there. But in terms of like written platforms where people are writing like on hacker chatter or on the dark web or on Facebook, this is my email address and password, security scorecard won't know if that's been changed because it can't actually look into your infrastructure. I'm not sure if other rating platforms, because they are non-intrusive, they wouldn't be able to actually see that. So yeah, that'd have to be like self-remediation. You'd have to say this has been resolved now, and then your score will reflect that, and it won't keep scanning the same thing. They can put in and go, right, okay, there's like a tick box, and they can go, right, okay, this has now been resolved. It's no longer a problem.
Great. And I'm kind of wondering myself, from the perspective of businesses, the actual vendors, how aware are they of the ratings and the fact that people are looking at the ratings? Because in the case where, they may be rated F, and no one wants to work with them because they're checking this, how much do they know about that?
Sorry, we're sat next to each other, so we have to keep muting ourselves. So I think from my perspective, I always recommend to my clients that, okay, if you're not going to speak to a vendor because of their rating, you send them their rating and go, this is the reason we don't want to work with you, because you need to fix A, B, C, D. If you fix them within the next 30 days, we'll do work with you, things like that. If you do have the platforms, I know this spans over a couple of different platforms, because obviously while we picked our partners, we did look at a couple of different ones to make sure that we were finding the best for our prospects and clients. I know that they do say on it like how many people have looked at your score. So if that said supplier has gone on and gone, I can see that 106 people are following my account, that means that 106 people are continuously monitoring that business. So they'll be able to see from there, right, okay, that's why my issues have been having. But it does just take, obviously, you have to be open and honest when you're turning down a vendor, when you say, no, I don't want to buy staples from you, I don't want to buy air conditioning from you. They tend to ask why anyway. But just in case they don't, I always recommend that you just say, oh, we're not dealing with you because of ABC. Send them their scorecard and say, listen, if you want to remediate these issues, we're more than happy to work with you, but unfortunately our standard is that we don't deal with anyone that's not 100% secure or 90% secure.
Just to add to that as well, we have had or known of cases before where organisations have turned around and said, because you can turn vendors down or suppliers down however you want. We have had cases before where companies have been sent their score, and I'm sure it's happened to a lot of organisations, and they've not been happy with their score. So it's just about reiterating. It's non-intrusive. You are being continuously monitored. So whenever anything changes, it will update on the score, it refreshes, but it is non-intrusive. So if an organisation are using these platforms to monitor their supply chain, they can do. It's not as though they're going into your organisation, or they're not saying do a pen test and show me the results. It's an easier, I suppose, quicker way of seeing where vulnerabilities lie without delving deeper. Some organisations are okay with it because they're quite happy with the score. Some organisations don't like it because they're not happy with the score. Some organisations like it because it helps them see where they lie to their suppliers. It depends from user to user, I tend to find. But yeah, it can some organisations haven't been happy before to receive their scorecard. But that was simply one of our clients sending it across to them because they weren't happy, and they wanted them to improve, really. So yeah, and with that in mind, you can easily, I don't think it's just our partner that has this button, but you can easily invite your suppliers to view their own scorecard on the platform. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, like some people, just going back to the issue of it is a non-intrusive report. So the disputes that we currently deal with are the disputes that we tend to get a lot, especially from like our clients, suppliers and things like that, is that the report doesn't reflect on their business positively because they don't understand what the network looks like. So just for everyone that's non-technical, if you're walking past a house and you see that the windows are smashed and the front door's wide open and you're a robber, you'd think, oh, that's a really easy house to rob. You go inside, they've got 3 attack guard dogs and police dogs and things like that. It's very similar with the network. So we just scan the front face of the network, anything that's behind it, like from like a login page or anything that's sort of linked. Do you know when you get them, how can I help bots? And you type in, oh, I need help with finding some new shoes, or I need some help finding some staples, I want a quote on this. That'll link to their CRM system. They can't see anything past that. So like I say, it's non-intrusive. So obviously following on from the front face of the website, there'll be pages behind that link directly into the network. Because it's non-intrusive, we can't see past that. So we can't see if you've got any firewalls in place. We can't see if they've got a beautiful infrastructure that's really, really high level, or anything like that. But all that we can say is that, yeah, you might have all them things, but this is what you are looking like to other people. This is what you need your application might have firewalls further back, but it doesn't stop people from getting in at the front face. We can see that these are issues. These issues do need remediating. And that's mainly because, like, again, with the application security, it's really easy to talk about application security. So we'll keep it quite like low level. But with the application security, we can only see before the login page, but it wouldn't take a hacker very long to create some fake credentials and get into your network infrastructure, or to find out someone's credentials. All they have to do is go, right, okay, I know that I can get through on this port. Once I get to this port, I'm then brought to a login page. All I have to do is email someone and say, I forgot my password. I need you to reset it for me. They reset the password and say, your password's now 123, and then they're in. So I think that it is important to make sure that you are completely secure from front to back. And like Adele said, we did have a client that came forward that said, this isn't right, this didn't reflect us positively. We once then went on a chat with them, discussed, obviously, this kind of conversation. We had our vendor on the call, our partner, on the call. And from there, the partner explained, and he actually went away and went, okay, I do need to fix a couple of things, but there were some issues that we had to resolve on our side, but also they understand, I think, especially with like IT professionals, no one likes being told that their infrastructure is not nice when they've spent 5-6 years building it, or they've requested budget and they've been declined it time and time again. So they've had to settle for something that's not as secure as possible. I think that I do always feel sorry for IT managers and like CISOs and things like that, because a lot of the time they don't get given the supplies that they need or anything that they need to build the infrastructure. And then when someone comes along and goes, by the way, did you know that you're actually really bad at your job? They're never going to take it very well. But they're obviously, at the end of the day, once they've sat through what the information is that we can actually find back from them, there are some issues to resolve, and they're always really happy when they end it.
Great. And another question is kind of, how has the perception changed on risk ratings, and how is it developing? And more companies you mentioned more companies taking it on. What's the overall kind of sentiment towards it?
I think it's mixed at the minute still. I think the organisations that are using it love it. I think the organisations that are being rated don't necessarily love it. But I suppose it's like, what's it called now? Credit ratings, when they first came into play, no one really liked them. I'm still not keen on them. But, you know, no one really liked them when they first came into play. It's part of our everyday life now. It's how we do things. They're impacted depending on what you do. So I do think perception could change over time still. These things take time, don't they, really? And it depends how much backing they get, and it depends how popular they do become. Because if everyone stopped using them, if everyone thought, this is a naff way to conduct due diligence, then it'd be out the window and they wouldn't matter anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, I think as well, especially because of the pandemic, I know that everyone's bored of hearing it, but I think that now that everyone has gone more cloud-based, more digital-based, it has become more important. Like, we've seen it, that cybersecurity has ramped up massively in terms of protecting your infrastructure and things like that. And I think that towards the latter end of this year, beginning next year, once everyone's like back in the office, back to normal, people will start to realize that, okay, we had to get this secure just to work from home. What else could we do to protect ourselves now that we're ready for that kind of attack? Now that we're ready, like phishing attacks went up like 53% while everyone was working from home, because everyone had to use emails. People might not be aware that they actually came from third parties. Like, I know it happened to us a couple of weeks ago that someone that we used to buy insurance through sent us an email saying that there were a bill that was unpaid. Now, luckily, our accountant is very anal, and he was like, I definitely paid that bill. So he's phoned him, and she's gone, the first thing she said when she answered the phone was, are you phoning about the email? And at that point, it's too late. It's too late. But if you're able to, obviously, that we could have then been breached by our third party, by our vendor risk. It was only because we used our due diligence and thought, right, that doesn't sound quite right. I know that I've paid that bill. I think once everyone gets back into the office, I know that a lot of people have been buying like training for their staff, like through, I don't know, like Know Before. They're probably the biggest ones around at the minute. Now that everyone's trained up on phishing attacks, it's now time for everyone to go, right, okay, what else should we be looking at? Now that everything's settled down and the dust is settled, let's have a proper look at our infrastructure. Let's have a proper look at what we've got in place. And then moving forward from there. I guess when everyone's renewals come up as well for all their at-home work, I bet there's a couple that get pulled out of that one because they go, no, back in the office now full time. But it is really important to keep that standard of security through your entire network, and that includes vendors.
Brilliant. JJ actually mentioned in reference to what we were just talking about before, he said even the best built homes need maintenance. Of
course, yeah. I mean, you can't paint a wall and expect it to stay clean forever. Yeah, you can't. I think as time goes on, cybersecurity, one thing I noticed when I first came into it, I think JJ was actually probably one of the people that helped me notice this, is IT security continuously changes. There's always something new, and every time there's a new breach, or every time there's a new thing hackers do, there's a new breach, there's a new way in. We're always, your IT managers and everything like that are the ones that are having to put things into place. You're continuously having to keep on top of things, and that's maintenance. You need to maintain a building, you need to maintain your IT infrastructure, but you also need to ensure that you're doing what you can from the outside as well. That is also important. A security gate's still important, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think as well, like going back to the house analogy, and me feeling sorry for IT managers, I think that it's kind of like say there's like a leak in your house and your wallpaper starts to bubble. I feel like security managers are just expected to like paint over it. And the directors will go, oh, just paint over it, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. And we're trying to explain as painters and decorators, it's not fine. It's going to bubble again. There's going to be problems. There's going to be something that happens. It's going to get worse. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, adding on to that, so say if, again, with the house analogy, if you didn't have the security gate and you did get in and you saw that bubbling wallpaper, you saw that issue, you managed to see that back door, you got in, you saw that bubbling issue because that maintenance wasn't there, it allows you to get further in, if that makes sense. It allows you to peel off the wallpaper.
And now you've got a house with no wallpaper and it's a nightmare. No, I think, yeah, obviously they are expected to just, there's a problem, just fix it. And I know for us, there's been times, like I say, with our accountant when they'd been breached, and we phoned and said, listen, we're an IT security business, let us speak to your IT team. And they're like, no, they're so busy. And it's like, I understand that obviously it were a cold call and things like that, but where else are they going to find this information from? I feel sorry for them because they'll sit there and they've got this big breach and everyone's drilling their phones out and saying, my computer's down, this isn't working, I can't log in. And they're just like, I just need to take a break, sit back, think about what my problem is, think about my solution. And then they have to go off and find a vendor to fix that. And I think that it's really, really difficult for them to do that. That's what I think. I think sometimes it upsets me thinking about IT managers sat in a dark room being like, oh my God, this is so stressful. But yeah, I think especially as time progresses and as the pandemic sort of slows down, I reckon by 2023, especially now that the insurance companies are using third-party vendor risk to assess the probability of you getting hacked, to then create cyber insurance for a business. Cyber insurance has gone up massively. My fiance's brother works for an insurance company, and he's seen it. He's an underwriter. He's like, there's been so many policies brought in place to protect businesses against third-party vendor risk. Like, it's just overwhelming. And what do they know about security? Like, nothing. They're no insurance, and that's it. So they don't know how to monitor, how to help, how to create a standard for, right, okay, this is what you need. So I think us partnering up with insurance companies in Leeds and things like that has really helped us help them understand in a lot more detail what it is they should be looking at. It's not just third party. Have they got training for their staff? Have they completed a standard? Are they keeping up to it? They can then monitor them and go, I can see that you've dropped a score. What's happening? Your insurance premium is going to go up. It's going to go down. You've got 30 days to remediate it. I think it is going to become increasingly more important over the next 6-7 months.
And JJ followed that up by saying, so essentially the risk rating is house survey. So I wanted to ask a quick question about what drawbacks are there, because we kind of looked into the vendor side of things. For a business, kind of looking at their vendors, what are the drawbacks and what are the main reasons that people don't use risk ratings?
I think one of the drawbacks would probably be that there is no set standard. With credit ratings, there is a set standard. With cybersecurity risk ratings, people can be wary to use them because there is no set standard. And as Mill said, when it comes to like insurance, things like that, people are a bit unaware of, one platform could say a score of 80 is good, whereas another platform could say a score of 80 is bad, you need a score of 900. So because there's no set rating, or there's no set standard, people don't know what's being rated because each platform rates different things. People don't know. If someone came to me because I'm familiar with one platform and said that, oh yeah, you guys are an 80, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's great, because I'm using a different platform to what they're using. Does that make sense? So there's no set standard. It can be a bit confusing. Everything's a bit up in the air. So once there's, hopefully, some point soon, there could be a standard in place. We have an idea of what's being rated to begin with, what scores they get for the issues, or what scores they get for not having issues, what scores are deducted for particular issues. That's what I'm trying to say. Once there's that understanding in play, then that'll be wiped out. And I do think it would be a huge player in the due diligence game. Don't know if there's any other drawbacks.
Yeah, I think as well, like just going back to some of the complaints that me and Adele have had, or some of the disputes that we've had to deal with, a lot of businesses have got really good upstanding relationships with their vendors. So they've used the same paper company for 30 years. They've used the same staples company for 12 years. And I think that they don't want to break that bond between them and their supplier. And they don't want to be like, well, you need to sort it out or we're not dealing with you. It can be quite an aggressive approach. But I also think that hackers have got a very aggressive approach. Like
Sorry, I was just going to say on that, I think if you have a good relationship with a supplier, if you've used a paper supplier for 30 years, it's a lot easier to turn around to them and say, look, we've done this check on you. We've got your cybersecurity rating here. We've found these issues. Please, can you resolve them? Otherwise, we're not going to use you anymore. Although that can be a bit disheartening to said paper supplier. It needs to be done. I'll let you carry on.
That's okay. Yeah, I think paper suppliers. What are we talking about? You've blocked me now. Yeah, I think as well, like it is important that you like re-establish them relationships and go, listen, I might have gone to your son's 3rd birthday party, but you are still just the paper supplier. We do have to make sure, like being a little bit more selfish with your security and being like, look, we have a set standard here. Unfortunately, you don't meet it. Let's get things remediated. Let's get things sorted. Like some people do, obviously, just talking about the drawbacks. Some people do get a little bit, I wouldn't say upset, but they definitely get a little bit on the back foot of being like, well, I think it's fine. I think it's perfectly fine. And unfortunately, that's just not correct. That's not what we should be looking at.
Yeah, they can probably think it's fine as well because they know what their inside security is like. So they could turn around, see this scar and be like, no, we're okay because we know what it's like inside. However, it is a bit like judging a book by its cover, I suppose. They're literally, you're just showing them what everyone else can see, what a hacker can see, all the way ins, all the ways in. So if they're easy to sort, why not sort them, sort of thing. So yeah, they can get the guard up a bit because they know what it's like inside. But yeah, I'd say that's probably about it.
Yeah, I think that's the main objection we get quite a lot is that, well, I've got this beautiful infrastructure, I don't need any of that. And I think it's just important to reiterate, like, well, this is how everyone else in the world sees you. These are still points where people can still take advantage of. These are still places that cause weakness to your network, to your infrastructure. Like, it's okay saying like, oh, I've got Kaspersky endpoint security and it integrates with all of our CRM systems and all of our network security and this, that, and the other. But sometimes that's not enough. It only covers you 97%. Whereas your third-party vendor risk could do you an extra 50%. And then I think it's important to just try and get that standard. Like, fine isn't really good enough. Like, oh, my network's fine. No, everything's fine. Like, fine's not a standard. If you want to be taken like seriously in the industry and in especially like your industry, like making sure that you're above the industry average, making sure that your competitors are below you in every single aspect. I think it's really important to just excel.
Just to sort of add to that as well, when Mill mentioned there, it's how other people see you, it's how hackers see you, it's their way in. I mean, if you were in a hacker's, like if you were a hacker and you saw an organisation, two different organisations, and say they had the same security behind their doors, but one of them had a few more one of them had a few more issues on their that you could see, you'd go for the one that had more issues that you could get into because you're able to see them. Don't, even though you have all that security behind that, the hacker sees that and it would, I'm not a hacker, I don't know how they think, but from my understanding, they'd go for what's easier over what they know has more from the outside in view.
Yeah, I think going back to the house analogy, if you're a robber and you're walking down the street and you see a house with barbed wired fence and like dogs in the garden, they've got metal doors, shutters on all their windows, you're going to go for the house next door with the wooden fence with panels missing and no welcome mat. I hate to say it, guys, no welcome mat. Door handle with no lock on it, things like that. Like, how you look outside is a lot more important than how like your sofas or your interior looks, because that is a way where people can still get in, and they exploit your vulnerabilities and they can see them open. I know that there's loads of platforms that are currently doing this. I don't think it'd take 2 minutes for a hacker or for anyone else to create the same kind of software that they're using, to then continuously monitor in their own platform. They might not sign up to Bitdefender, Security Scorecard, whatever they're using. They might not actually sign up for it to give away their details, but they can create the exact same simulation and they can continuously monitor. They're just waiting for that little tiny dip. I know there's an application issue there. I'm going to exploit it now. And it just takes that 5-10 minutes of you being down or your network being down or a password or someone's clicked a link and it's taken them somewhere else and they've entered the credentials. It just takes that 10 minutes for someone to go, now's my time. I know that over COVID, there has been a lot of charities that have been hit and it's awful. Who hits a charity? Do you know what I mean? Like it got to that point where even charities where you'd never think, well, I'm a charity, I don't need cybersecurity. why would I need cybersecurity when I'm just a charity? But them charities were also linked to universities, so they got island hopped. And I think it spread. Like there were a blackboard incident where Newcastle University, universities up north and down south were getting hit because Blackboard got infiltrated and they got hacked, and it went through to the full stem of universities, and a lot of student funding, student information, addresses, mobile numbers, things like that were stolen, a lot of personal data, and they were held for ransom. And obviously the university just said, okay, we'll pay it. Or Blackboard just said, okay, we'll pay it. And that's tend to what you do in them situations because they've got a lot of your data. It's worrying. You can't wait for the police. There's really no consequences, but it's not monitored. Nothing online is monitored. So if I phoned up the police now and said, hi, someone's just sent me an email and I've clicked on it and I gave them my details. It's actually really funny. It happened to my fiance. He was at home and he really wanted to buy a Switch. And he went onto a website and paid for a Switch, but he put in his bank details. And he's gone there. He's gone, oh, these are my bank, like, they're asking me to put in my bank details, Millie. And I said, yeah, that's okay. Just put your bank details in, pay through PayPal. And when I went to go pay, it said, oh, our payment system's down. Please pay by bank transfer. And he did it. And I was sat there and I was like, Scott, that was £400 of your money. And it's now gone because you've just paid by bank transfer because a website told you to. And it's still not turned up to this day. I had to buy another one. But I think like it just shows like that's how easy it is for people to just redirect you to a different website and go, oh, you need to pay by this actually. And it's that again is still like a third party vendor risk that's happened, because even if it's business to consumer, someone's paying at the expense of a business's weak network.
JJ asked, when is he doing a risk rating?
Hopefully. Yeah, he definitely needs it.
We can send you one through, JJ, don't worry.
Awesome. So I think we're about done, unless you guys have anything else you want to add.
I think that's it. I would like to mention as well, if you don't mind, Adam, that we are actually doing over at AirNow Cybersecurity a week's worth of webinars in October for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And on day 2, on Tuesday, the 26th, I think, of October, we are going to be doing something with our third-party vendor risk suppliers security scorecard, where you'll be able to see all the information that they can actually see, and you'll be able to get talked through it. Or if you do want to request your own scorecard or one of your suppliers or one of your competitors, you can always message Adam and he can send over your details to me or Adele, and we can just send it through to you. I promise you we will not call you afterwards and go, hi, I think it's through your scorecard, do you want to have a meeting about it? We can just send over the information, obviously, to help just you see what that actually is and what it looks like.
Yeah, it's always handy to have it there and be able to look at it and potentially fill in those gaps. Just another thing as well, as Mill mentioned earlier, quite briefly, IT security is really important, whether it's how you look from the outside or how you look from the inside. All of it together, you know, if you have a weak outside and a really strong inside, really strong infrastructure, you know, you're still at risk. If you have a really strong, you know, outside cybersecurity posture but a weak infrastructure, you're still at risk. You know, you want to have strong infrastructure, you want to be strong from the outside, you want to be on top of everything. You know, it's all really important. And there's ways to monitor the outside, your outside cybersecurity posture, and there's ways to identify weak spots on the inside. So it's all really important, cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity is important.
Brilliant. And yeah, so obviously if you'd like to check out that kind of follow up to this event, get in touch with one of us, post in the Cyber Lounge, and we'll make sure to pass you on. Well, we are also doing another Cyber Lounge webinar that is on the Thursday, the 30th, and that's at 10:30 a.m. We're going to be doing a live deepfake demo, and we're going to be talking about the kind of risks of that. So I'm really excited for that to see that live. So make sure you sign up to that. You can just go onto the West Point Cyber Talent page, and it'll come up in events, so you can get to it there. Other than that, I'd just like to thank Adele and Millie for this quite insightful update for me, especially because we talked about it quite a while ago. And I'd like to thank everyone watching and everyone asked a question. Other than that, have a great week.
Bye, guys.